Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we'll go from the Mojo-verse to Earth 616 to the nation of Wakanda in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
Alliance, assemble. Volume 137, and Wakanda forever, Brent.
It's Wakanda week, Finally, we're finally here. It feels like it's been a long time. Not since we had a movie, but like for this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's been one that officially closes out our year of MCU movies at that point, and is the final film of Phase 4. It is not the final project of Phase 4. We still have got a couple more weeks till we hit that one, but I would say they definitely closed Phase 4 on a banger.
That is, I think, pretty undeniable.
So, but how you doing today?
Good. It's been kind of a weird week, We got some not so great news today, but overall, it's been all right.
Yeah, same thing. We'll get into the tragic news of today. I kind of put a lot of things in perspective, but yeah, all in all, a short week for me. It's a weird week for work. We had first 2 days off. We went to school for 2 days, and then we had today off. So
yeah, that's weird.
Yep, weird week. But all right, well, since we got a lot to talk about tonight, let's get the show plugs out of the way. So as you all know, we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network with 8 shows covering a wide range of geek and nerdom. To see the full schedule, check out the show notes below and subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on Twitter at GUA Pod Network so you know when all these shows are dropping. We also have a Patreon if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way. We want to thank our patrons. We cannot do this without your support. We've got 2 tiers. Our $1 tier is our tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job? And then we've got our $5 tier with ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon-exclusive shows, including our show, We Can Watch This All Day, the Marvel Alliance MCU Rewatch. Episode 10, we've got Captain America the Winter Soldier. That's dropped, and we are getting ready to record episode 11, Brent. Speaking of a holiday special, very timely for this.
Yes, we are. Very, very soon we will have Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, yeah, we'll be recording that. I think our schedule says Monday night, so...
that sounds right from what I remember. So Yep, Monday night.
All right, so yeah, that'll be dropping at the end of the month at that point. But again, patrons, if you want to join our Patreon, you can go to www.patreon.com/GUA network to become part of the GUA Patreon. So again, thank you, patrons. But if you can't join us on Patreon, we will totally understand. If you want to take 30 to 90 seconds to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever podcatcher choice may be, we greatly appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for your omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. JP and the crew at OPB have got it going on with immaculate customer service, excellent packaging, shipped around the world. They've got 6 more days in order to secure the extra discounts on some of these lovely Marvel omnis and hardcover editions. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. And again, we want to thank them for being an official sponsor. So one last thing before we get into, we want to let all our lovely listeners know that our GWA monthly crossover is set to be this coming Friday. So next Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Geekverse podcast YouTube channel, we will do our next monthly GWA meetup with all the hosts and co-hosts from across the network. And you can check that out at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live. And then our Tier 2 patrons, you will have a special link to join in the Zoom call and converse with us. We didn't have anyone join last week, so maybe once our patron said this is for real, hopefully we get some joining. And if they don't join, they just want to listen, hey, we're here to entertain you, right?
Absolutely. Always.
So,
but do join. It's fun.
Yes, it's a fun time. So check us out next Friday. And so there's no easy way to transition to this. We know we're Marvel Alliance, but we both, the fan community, got some very unfortunate news this morning that the one, the only Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, amazing actor, amazing human being, had passed away yesterday, Thursday, from a very short battle with cancer. This has been a tough year for us fans, losing a number of comic book creators, but this one definitely hurts a lot, you know.
Yeah, with Kevin Conroy passing, I mean, he's in my opinion the definitive Batman. His the voice he does for both Batman and Bruce Wayne, this version of the character, transcends all others. And he's done more than just the '90s Batman show. You know, he's done some movies. He did Justice League. He's done several video games. Like his is the voice that I hear when I'm reading something, and it's with Batman.
Yeah, he was 66 years old. The press release goes into, you know, a noted stage, film, and television performer. He rose to unparalleled voice acting when he took on the voice of Batman, Bruce Wayne, and like you said, would establish himself as the preeminent voice that we all think of and know of. He's Juilliard trained, and you know, he represented so much to so many of us at that point, more beyond, I mean, just his giving to the fans and going out there and just being the best person he could be. You know, you hear the stories from the one we hear a lot this today, but even back then, about how he was helping serve food to 9/11 rescuers at that point, and the people realizing who he was, and him people not believing it. Then he does the "I am vengeance, I am the night." Some of our mutual friends posting memories of them, including yourself, meeting Kevin Conroy a couple of years back.
Yep. Yeah, he met him at a con, and he actually the picture that he signed for me is back there on the wall somewhere. It's up in the corner back there, but he you know, he basically stood on like a chair and shouted, "I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman" to the crowd as well, waiting there. And then he spoke in the voice to my daughter, telling her to go down to the Batcave, which I don't know if she realized how cool that was, but I know how cool that was, that I got to listen to him talk to her that way in that voice. So it was a real great memory for me. Very, very tragic, just tragic loss for our community.
Yeah, it's one of those where I had a friend who got a chance to meet him back in the summer, and surprised me by getting what I consider to be the definitive Batman movie in my list of the Batman Mask of the Phantasm mini poster signed by him with the "I am vengeance" on it. That is hanging in my office at work, and you know, Kevin Conroy to me, besides being the voice, just like every time I hear people or I see people posting cameos and things like that, the advice he gives is the upliftingness of it and how much he cared about the fans and all around it. I watching some of my favorite clips of the animated series or Justice League Unlimited, it was not hard just to, I mean, tear up and just say this one. It's when I get my kids to start watching Batman the animated series, things like that, like they'll hear the voice but not, and he's no longer with us, being that a true light has been lost in this world. And just seeing, you know, how cruddy it's been on Twitter these days, just seeing my timeline filled with nothing but all these memories, all these things, all just thanking Kevin for everything that he did for the characters. It brought out of sadness, it brought a little bit of light into a dark world.
Yeah, and I've seen a number of posts there and on Facebook. My Facebook is far less geek related, let's say, so it was nice to see some stuff on there as well. But yeah, right, you know, rest in peace, Kevin Conroy.
One last thing, if you right now, you don't have to be a DC Universe Infinite subscriber, but this summer he wrote a small, I think about 8-page thing in that issue, DC Pride 2022, about his career and the struggles he had as a gay man and trying to get a role, leading to the moment when he got cast as the voice of Batman, Bruce Wayne. It's very raw. It is very unapologetic and very real for what he had to do. And I had reposted a video he said to thanking the fans of how much they had gravitated towards it, and thanking DC for allowing him to do this. So more than anything, you know, thank you, Kevin Conroy, for everything you did for the community, and you will be missed. So
absolutely.
No easy transition back to what our main topic is, but Brent and I at least wanted to have our thoughts set on this without waiting too much longer. But So Wakanda Forever, Black Panther Wakanda Forever came out. We both saw it on the preview night at that point. It's officially out worldwide at that point. We got our non-spoiler thoughts first. So, Brent, what did you think of this movie?
They had this just impossible task in front of them, making a sequel to a movie as big as Black Panther was without your star Black Panther, without Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa. And honestly, I would be lying if I told you I didn't miss him. Like the entire movie, I missed him. I don't quite know if mourn is the right word, but I definitely like feel the loss of what could have been had he been able to be a part of it. But even with all of that, they made this beautiful, incredibly compelling story, this fantastic movie that, speaking with my wife afterwards, I described almost felt like a public funeral for Chadwick Boseman. She said it gave a sense of closure to him, and they managed to do all of this with both honoring him and, telling a great story with the characters that they did have, telling a wonderful story with the characters that they did have, while at the same time, even setting up a couple little things for future storylines. They did it. They did it. It was an impossible task. They rose to the occasion and they succeeded.
Yeah, I would agree. You're right. That's the word. The impossible task of putting together a movie with the loss of your lead. How do you carry on? How do you bring all these characters together and not just be a movie that is just so focused on Chadwick T'Challa not being there, but what is the future of Wakanda? What is the future of this franchise being? And you're exactly right. It is, from pretty much almost everyone in this movie was on another level, was reaching to another level, and namely Angela Bassett is just a master class of, she owned any moment in the first movie, and she dominates this movie whenever she is on screen, and truly a mother's pain is felt throughout this movie of just how do you carry on throughout this whole thing. But not only that, the soundtrack, Ludwig Göransson is still amazing in this. The moments they have, it is, one could, is it as cohesive as the first one? I wouldn't say yes in that sense, but again, it's the amount of different things they have to play around with, and I personally give them a pass on that just because of the hand that they were dealt, and what most of the stuff that they were able to weave together by the end is like they have me on the edge of my seat by the end of this movie, like wondering what is going to be next, what could possibly them throw. And I'll tell you what, the punches that this movie throws at you and the risks that they take, my goodness, Ryan Coogler has cemented himself as definitely one of the top tier MCU directors.
Oh, no question about that at all. You mentioned the acting performance of Angela Bassett. I would just add to that in a movie where, in my opinion, there was no weak link, there was no weak acting performance in the entire movie. I think everybody turned it in. She rose above. She still rose above what everyone else was doing, and I mean everyone else, like especially Letitia Wright. Wow, did she turn in something special as well? But just the entire movie, like they definitely take you through a range of emotions. I'd be lying if I told you there were not tears, and I'd be lying if I told you there were not chills at different points of this movie. And at one point in the movie, maybe even potentially interact, like converging on those two emotions at the same time.
Oh yeah,
incredibly well done, just incredible.
Yeah, this is, again, it is a long movie, but if anything, I'm glad when we've complained about the past two movies of being they wish we could have had the time. I've heard some people say, well, this movie could be like 20 minutes shorter, things like that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, well, we can't have it both ways.
Right. We'll get there. I do think there is a sequence, or maybe it's a set, let's call it a subplot that you maybe could do without, or you could tighten up a bit more. And sure, it falls under the world building category, I think, but we'll get there. But even without that, like the movie's runtime was like 2 hours 40 minutes, 2 hours 41, something like that. Even if you took out that subplot, you're still probably close to 2.5 hours, if not north of it. So
Yeah.
it's not that long, and there's certainly not a lot I would have wanted to see taken out. And I've got a couple nits I can pick at here and there, but all in all, I am thoroughly impressed.
Yeah. So, all right, we're dancing around this, so let us give that first ad break before we get into nothing but spoilers for the rest of this show. So if you have not seen Black Panther: Wakanda Forever and don't want to be spoiled, stop now, go see the movie, come back to us at that point. But if you've seen it or don't care about being spoiled, stay with us. But we will take our first ad break. So listeners, you know these ads help keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud, so give that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. So, all right, as always, we're going to do this as breaking up into 3 acts. So, as Act 1 coming first. Now, if you are live in the chat, we'll be taking comments at the end of each act at that point. So, to make sure you don't think we're ignoring you, we're just trying a little something different tonight. As you see, it is just Brent and I tonight. This is how we're going to do reviews from now on as well. So, Brent, you kind of said at the non-spoilers that the many different times you kind of got teared up and I would have to say that right at the beginning, I was already in tears with how they were handling T'Challa's death, and then you get the fanfare with what we both wanted, the Chadwick Boseman Memorial Marvel fanfare, but they did it even better with absolutely no soundtrack, just silence.
I anticipated the feels. Like I was like, this movie I know is going to get to me. I should have anticipated it immediately. But I'm like, as I'm watching it live, I'm like, we're not even to the Marvel logo yet, and I've already got tears. Like it was that fast. And of course, yes, we all know that Chadwick Boseman passed, but the way they handled it in the story, for me, I think it worked wonderfully. In a perfect world, would we have been able to see it on, sure. But for the situation they had, giving him an undisclosed illness that they just, mystery illness box, basically. They don't go into any more detail than that. And frankly, I don't think they needed to go into any more detail than that. I just, seeing the desperation on Shuri's face as she is trying so hard to synthesize the heart-shaped herb, because Killmonger destroyed it in the previous movie. And that is something they referenced the previous movie several times. Like, it is absolutely required viewing, I think, for this movie. But it's just the desperation in her trying to put it back together. And she finally gets this one that's like 28% chance of it being viable. And even that, she's too late to try.
Yeah, you just hear it in the opening before they even see her on screen. You hear her voice just praying to Bast, just let me heal my brother, please. Just let me do that. And it was just like the desperation. She's trying all these different things. Like you said, she still can't even get there with Queen Ramonda coming out, and just you see it in her face, and you hear the words that he's gone, he's passed. And that's how we begin the movie. And it's, you and I had talked about how are they going to do this? Are they going to do the mystery illness? Or are they going to have him die in battle? And I kind of lean towards, I think they're going to go the mystery illness route, just because, not because of it's what happened with Chadwick. I think it's the easiest thing in the sense of you don't need a fake act. You don't need another actor hidden in the costume. You don't need to do CGI or superimposing. Like, it's just there. We deal with it up front, and that's how we start the movie. It's the elephant in the room that we're wondering how long we're going to wait until we see this happen. But what was interesting was like the timeline for this. We next flash forward a year later. This, based on my estimates, is like, this is only a few months after Endgame, No, it's got to be longer than that.
Okay. Because it's got to be post-snap, because he's back alive.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's post-snap, but how long after post-snap?
Oh, like you mean before he died?
Yeah, before he died.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I think you're right. Like this had to have happened a little bit before that because then they jump ahead a year. The timeline is getting a little hard to keep track
Yeah.
of, but
Yeah.
they jump ahead a year, and there's a thing at the very end of the movie that'll have us talking timeline as well.
Hmm.
But I think we can pinpoint that one as well. But yeah, like this, you're probably right. This probably is relatively short after Endgame. Like this could be, this could be Far From Home was 8 months after Endgame post Blip, so
Yeah.
like this is probably no later than that, maybe a little earlier.
So we see the funeral, which we've seen a lot in the trailers at that point. But with the funeral, I think how they did it, and again, it kind of channels what Chadwick had said to Natasha in Civil War: "Death is not the end."
Yeah, they definitely like that's a pretty large theme throughout the movie in general is specifically with Shuri and her belief or disbelief in the astral plane. She basically owns up to the fact that she really didn't believe that it was real. She goes so far as to tell Ramonda that when Ramonda had an experience where she felt she was visited by T'Challa, that was just a construct of her mind making her feel better, which is kind of interesting because Shuri ends up with her own similar situation later. But basically, like the astral plane, like we know, like in the Marvel world, yes, it is real, it is a thing. Shuri eventually discovers that's the case, but for much of the movie she doesn't think so.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting struggle with kind of looking at that. Then we flash to, like you said, a year later, and we see, we flash. This is a globe-trotting movie, so we're now going to the UN in Geneva, which typically, UN's usually we see in the headquarters being in New York, but now we're at Geneva, and Queen Ramonda is going to be giving basically, as other countries are looking at Wakanda, saying, "Why aren't you sharing? Why aren't you sharing?" And she gives pretty good reasons about why not they're sharing, as we're juxtapositioned between a quote unquote a Wakanda welcome center, Wakanda research facility being attacked by mercenaries.
I love when she says, we don't keep this to ourselves. We're not keeping vibranium to ourselves because of the dangerous potential of vibranium. We do it because of the dangerous potential of you. As that we just saw them get attacked. Like we just saw the French soldiers or mercenaries attack a Wakandan outpost, and just that moment when she has that scene where the Dora protect the outpost and save the outpost, and Okoye and the others just appear out of the pitch black, out of the darkness, and Anika has the light daggers or whatever. Those are cool. I really liked her. Hopefully we're going to see more of Anika in the future. Really great opening action scene for us, but as cool as it was not as cool as that moment when she had the Dora parade the mercenaries into the floor of the UN and just make them kneel in front of him. Just absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah, especially like they're from France at that point, because the French ambassador is just trying to do what it was like a debate, like, are they French or are they from the Americans at that point? And man, I like it. Not only does she traipse them into, oh yeah, we're also going to be sending you all video evidence of who's responsible for this, of a member sitting here right now at that point. And just they prove exactly her point. Like, yeah, we're not sharing because this is the actions you're going to take in order to get more of it. This is not about how this works. It's not how you prove you trust or you want to work with us. This is just bad form.
And little cameo there from Richard Schiff from Toby from the West Wing, right? Just he's apparently gone up a few levels in the government hierarchy. But no, that was really cool. I always like Richard Schiff. He just brings like a gravitas to every single part that he plays, and I had no idea he was in this, and that was a fun little cameo.
It was. He can't get out of government, right?
You know what? I don't even want him to. Stay right there.
Yep, stay right there. So we flash back to Wakanda and Ramonda imploring Shuri to continue her research for the heart-shaped herb in order to create a new Black Panther. And Shuri's just like, no, Black Panther's gone. It's over. It stays dead with my brother. It's a figure of the past. We don't need it. We're not doing this because it just brings up too much pain for her. And what I found was interesting is that right before that, right during it, like Nakia is trying to call her and she plain old ignores it. Just like can't even talk with her, won't even talk with her.
Yeah, she's basically shutting herself off, from her friends, from her family, emotionally. Just she's shut off, and she's like, no, the Black Panther is a thing of the past. We need technology to go forward, and you kind of get that from her, right? Like she's like the head of their science division, right? She is in a country full of tech geniuses. She is the tech genius, and so yeah, you kind of get why she would feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, she showed kind of that whole side of her during the first movie is that she is basically the smartest person in the world, and she proves it day in day out. At that point, why should I hold on to the past of superstition and heart-shaped herbs and things like that when again, she's partially throughout this movie, she's partially blaming herself for T'Challa's death because she couldn't get there fast enough. So, but what did you think about as we flash to the Atlantic Ocean, this ocean rig that the CIA and others are on to mine for vibranium at that? What did you think about that whole sequence as we start getting our first views of the Talosians?
Well, I appreciated right before that, or at the UN, Ramonda saying, like, if you're going to mine for vibranium outside of Wakanda, well, good luck to you, right? Have at it. And she's so confident that there is no other vibranium. And, eventually Shuri will make the connection of like, well, there could have easily been more than one asteroid, right? I liked it. I loved it. I thought it was great. And so you get this almost horror-like sequence of events where these two deep sea divers are attacked, and we don't see what happened to them. I mean, we know that the Talokans attacked them, but we don't know. Like, we didn't see it. Lake Bell is there. She's like the scientist or the doctor who's working with them. Notable because she was like, at least for the Marvel circles, she voiced Black Widow in What If, I believe.
Yes,
I believe that's the same person. So kind of cool to see her join there. The sequence I thought got especially chilling when they pulled like the Greek mythology style sirens, where they just had everyone walking to their deaths and just going on. They figured it out. Get earplugs in, and the one guy whose name escapes me fires off his gun to like break the sound up, and he saves one. Of course, that one gets then dragged underwater anyway. But to me, like, that was like the creepiest part of that entire sequence, was just watching them all just, follow that siren song and just jump to their death.
Yeah, I mean, we get introduced to at this moment like Atuma, Namora, who is Namor's cousin, and like you're saying, they're taking everyone out. Like there is, I mean, yes, they get a few shots in on him and take a few of them down, or like Belle's character takes a few of them down, but like it's almost like the movie Aliens. You got Hudson going, they're coming out of the walls, man. They're coming out of the gosh, like they're everywhere. Like they do not stand a chance at that point. And you think even just as Lake Bell is flying away at that moment, and you get in the pilot's going, we're going backwards. We're being held back. And there we get our first introduction to Namor. And I'm sorry, but he's just almost like at that moment, it's like, yeah, he proves within that moment that just taking down that plane without even breaking a sweat.
Let's just get out of the way now. Like, no, he is not 100% obviously translated from the comic books. Comics is from Atlantis. They wanted to change that for what I feel is pretty obvious reasons, just avoid the direct comparisons with Aquaman. That's fine. But what they did with him, with Namor in this, creepy, super well acted, fantastic villain, right? And maybe, at the end, when all is said and done, villain / antagonist / probably, knowing the way he normally goes, reluctant ally at some point, most likely in like Secret Wars or something like that. But just the way he would, just the viciousness, that he had, and just he would use his spear to take out these helicopters or the whatever flying jets and stuff throughout the movie, and just I had never got tired of watching him stab that spear around. And the wings, right? Like the ankle wings.
Oh, yeah.
How did they make the ankle wings cool, right? Like that should not have been possible. And yet they managed to do it.
Yes, that was the CGI on those wings were very impressive. I mean, Tenoch Huerta, this is his first major movie, you know? If on the American side, he brought Namor to life, brought him in the sense of like, I literally can believe you are. I believe that you think you're above it all. You think you can take anyone on, and if you cross me, I will take you down. And when I threaten, I will come back if you break your word to me and take you down. Oh, yeah, I am so glad that they brought real justice to him in this movie because again, Namor is not necessarily a household name. He has come to more prominence since he has come on to the side of the X-Men and things like that. But man, they just brought so much capturing that comic essence of him and to fear him. Imperious Rex, you fear him.
Yeah, and they he did finally give us that Imperious Rex towards the end, but we'll I have a comment on that when we get there. But he, yes, you do. Like you genuinely fear him. Like when he late a little bit later comes out of the water and we meet him. Like we really meet him for that first time as he's meeting Ramonda and Shuri. Like in that moment, if he attacks, those two are dead. Right? Mm-hmm. Like in that situation, there's no heart-shaped herb, there's no special suits, there's no Midnight Angels, there's no Black Panthers, there's no Iron Hearts, there's nothing. Like they're dead. Like he would absolutely demolish them. And it's only because of his larger goal of getting Wakanda to work with him that he does not just destroy them right then and there. Like he is that powerful.
Yeah, especially, like you said, they're down there at the shore, Ramonda and Shuri, commemorating T'Challa's death, his 1 year anniversary since his death, and he just comes out of the water, just like comes out, and they're like, "What the heck is this? Who is this person?" And it's how the lines he delivers in this are just such a perfect cadence, a perfect thing about suave but authority. He said he blames Wakanda for the new arms race for vibranium. It basically tells them, I need you to find the scientist responsible for this machine that is searching out vibranium, that can find vibranium, and if you don't do it, I'm going to attack and destroy Wakanda. Like, dude, we just met. We don't know who you are, and you're making threats like this. And they believe they are not necessarily not believing he do it because he just bypassed the force field, keeping Wakanda that's supposed to keep any outsider from getting Wakanda, And they said, well, it came under the water. Yeah, that force field is supposed to go underneath the water. He found a way through it, Mm-hmm. So he's already proven that, I can get past your defenses. And even though you haven't seen my power, you can see that, I'm not necessarily one to mix words. If I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, and not just did he get past it, but they said like he wasn't alone because while he was talking to them, his agents were getting the vibranium detector up on the beach there undetected. They did not know that he was there. Like you could imagine a scene where he drops it in front of them and it's this big showy spectacle. But no, he went the far more subtle route, something Namor's not normally known for, and he just left it there for them to find when they turned around, which is almost creepier the way he did it.
Yeah, it really is. And, they transition to them being seen at the Wakanda Tribal Council meets and Ramonda telling them exactly what happened. And they're trying to determine how to proceed. And Okoye's there and basically saying, like, let me go. I'll get the scientist. It'll be no problem at that point. And so they go down to Shuri's lab to see exactly what's going on, what she can find out about this about this machine, and she's like in her element at that point. It's like, you're gonna send Okoye to get the scientist? No, no, let me go with her because I at least speak their language and can make this not like a threatening thing. Like,
And Okoye wanted her to go, thinking it would be good
Yeah.
for her to get out and get, just to get away from Wakanda for a bit. They have to convince Ramonda. I want to mention something about the tribal because I think it's important for something towards the end of the movie. They include now M'Baku as a member of that council.
Yes.
He literally has like a seat at the table, right? Like he's in the room. And I think that's important because we know how isolated the Jabari were at the start of Black Panther 1. They obviously came to T'Challa's aid at the end of that movie, and then again in Infinity War, even with a handshake there, and I believe referred to T'Challa's brother in Infinity War, if I'm remembering right, and then obviously fought with him at the Battle of Endgame, the Portals battle. And so I like how at this point they've gone from the Jabari being the outcast of the Wakandans to at least now more accepted, and in M'Baku's case, a respected member of their council.
Yeah, and I like that because again, it also will highlight, like you said later on, like why M'Baku is also so important, and that the respect that he has shown by being a member of this council, even though he's not in Wakanda proper, in that way, being down in the city, what he represents, what he's going to be to Shuri and the rest of the council. And it's one of those things that you just. Queen Ramonda is now the recognized ruler of Wakanda at this point, but they're all just still kind of, you can just sense amongst them that it's not just T'Challa missing. It's not saying the queen can't do it. It's just like there's a presence missing. There's they're very unsure about what to take. It's not like sides fighting against each other. They're just like, no, someone needs to really be taking charge in that sense, and it just seems to be a lot of I really don't know which way we're going to be going with confidence. Like we'll authorize this getting the scientists, but we're really not totally sure that may be the right way to proceed.
And I think part of that stems from several times they refer to Black Panther as their protector, of Wakanda, and you're right. It's not just that their king is gone, that their king died. It's that they're also their hero of their nation died. Like their superhero, their protector is no longer there. So they're not as sure, because this is the kind of thing that like this mission would have fallen to the Black Panther had a Black Panther been active.
Yeah. So like you said, that Shuri and Okoye are going to go out and find out who this scientist is. And but yeah, that's the anything else we missed in looking at Act 1?
I think that's definitely the highlights and stuff. I'll go ahead and mention here and just get it out of the way for the entire review. There's probably 4 or 5 times throughout the movie where they do this thing that just, it bugs me every single time, and I gotta call it out. Those light background CGI moments when you can just tell like it's a daytime shot, and it never looks as good. Like at night, it never bothers me, but just something about it, and it's not even every daytime shot, but just every now and then, there's a few times throughout the movie, and there were a couple in this first act as well, but there's a couple of them in every act. So I'll go ahead and just mention it now before I forget it.
Yeah, so looking at some of the chat at that point, the chat tonight, we're going to try something a little different in the sense of looking at comments after each act, anything that kind of applies and things like that. So if you don't see us mentioned during it, wait till the end of each act and we'll do that. But I see Derpy in the chat saying, how was this film? 85% deserves at least 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's coming from a DC fan. This movie was a tribute to Chadwick, and my God, Coogler did a great job for what it was considering the situation. Rotten Tomatoes, we could go on a whole episode about why Rotten Tomatoes is not the best aggregator for this. But again, it's your opinion, Derpy, and it's an aggregator at that point. So it only matters that you consider it to be more than 90% at that point. No one can take that from you.
I'll just say this about Rotten Tomatoes. It probably shouldn't matter, but it does. a bad score does matter, but because people do use it as a tool to determine whether or not they're going to go see a movie. All things being equal, well, I'll go with the one that's certified fresh and not rated rotten or whatever, right? This score in the 80s, it's certified fresh, and I just looked it up at the time of this recording. It's actually 84%. So it's even gone down a little bit from when Derby saw it.
Yep.
Who cares? Like in the grand scheme of things.
Did you like it? That's the important thing.
Right. I feel like anyone who's complaining about a Rotten Tomato score is not using Rotten Tomatoes to make their movie watching decisions. And so for you individually, it doesn't matter. The score is good enough. The difference between 95 and 80, it doesn't matter. They're all it's certified fresh. That's really all that matters.
Yeah. I didn't miss. I can't remember when the first CNN report came through. It might have been this first act, but David's in the chat saying the first CNN report had a mention of Scott Lang's book tour.
I somehow missed that sitting right next to you during the theater, David.
David, that's not what friends do. Friends actually nudge him and saying, "Hey, did you see that?" Nah, yeah.
but yeah, there was a who was it? Anderson Cooper from CNN.
Yep.
Pops up a couple times throughout to give just little bits of exposition, but mainly it's bits that the general public knows. Like they do acknowledge that Ramonda is the queen once again. Later they acknowledge what happens to her. They don't give the details, but yeah, I actually kind of like that. If anything, I was just surprised it was CNN because that's based on the ownerships. But
yeah, that's true too.
Kind of through it's not necessarily the network I would have anticipated there, but I guess Disney doesn't really have a big news network, do they? Like that, not the
ABC.
Well, yeah, but does ABC have one of those channels?
Well, they do have a channel, but it's not like one of those like CNN cable. They do have a straight news one,
it's not like CNN. It's not like MSNBC or Fox
not
News
that
or any of
not
those.
up to that level. No.
So, their closest thing would probably be ESPN, right? Like they're not going to do it there. So, all right, CNN. But Anderson Cooper, I like him, so that works. That was cool.
Yeah, that was so. And last thing before we move on, Derpy saying I did tear up throughout the movie, but the mid credits full on emotional damage. Yeah, we will get there when we get there at that point. But yeah, throughout the movie, definitely a lot of tearful moments. So, all right, before we head into Act 2, we're going to take our next ad break. So listeners, again, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. They could be a bit loud, so I'll give you that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we're back. So Act 2, opening up with Shuri and Okoye meeting a blast from the past from the first movie. Mr. CIA agent himself, Everett K. Ross, played by Martin Freeman.
Shuri's favorite colonizer.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I just love that is her name for her. And he's running through probably a trail in Alexandria, Virginia, and starts noticing this bug following him, and he starts realizing, that bug's trying to get his attention. And that's when Shuri and Okoye reveal themselves, asking him to say who the scientist is that designed it. And he's like saying, and hint towards the future of when he does this, like, there have been people brought up on treason charges for less than what I'm about to do. So it's like anyone finds out about this, yeah, I'm going down.
And yet he still does it because, as they reference multiple times, Ross owes Wakanda. He owes Shuri. He owes T'Challa. T'Challa made the call to bring him back to Wakanda, and Shuri actually did the work to save his life. Of course, he was shot in the process of saving Wakandans, but regardless, they could have easily left him behind. Okoye would have left him behind, and they made a different call. And that has, earned favor for both sides here. Basically, it's a reciprocal relationship. There's a little bit of joking, a little bit of friendship there. Okoye just kind of tolerates him. But this getting into the Ross stuff, I was glad it's weird because I was glad he was there, but I don't feel like he did that much for the overall plot of the story. I mean, yeah, he pointed them in the direction of Riri Williams, but they could have found out another way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things like he's kind of that random person in there that's more of like, oh, we need to have a plot point to kind of say, okay, what's the government think about what's going on? Like, where is the government in this at this point? It could be, if you take this whole thing out with Everett Ross, the CIA, things like that, it's like, it would be missed as not having Everett, but is how pivotal is it to the main plot of the movie of what it's getting at? Like the U.S. government's not directly involved in this outside of investigating what's going on and thinking that Wakanda really took down the oil rig and not the Talosians.
Yeah, exactly right. So I mean, he served his purpose. He was a little bit of just a plot point, but that's all right.
Yeah, so especially where we get him involved in what's who someone's really well connected to him apparently. But we'll get there. I can't wait to talk about that. But so Shuri and Okoye end up at Cambridge, Boston, MIT specifically, to meet the scientist, and they are more surprised by who the scientist is in the sense of how young the scientist is. And this is where we get our official MCU introduction to Riri Williams. And I'm telling you right now, I love the side hustle she's got going on.
Yeah, just doing the homework for people, and love that she's charging you owe me, what was it, like $1,000? It was 800.
Oh my God,
well,
yeah.
It was 800 yesterday, but it's 1,000 today. Pretty
Yeah.
great. The introduction of her gave me massive Peter Parker and Civil War vibes. Just massive vibes from that, which is obviously a good way to to get my affection and to get me on the hook here.
Yeah.
But it really did seem like this tech genius comes to basically recruit this younger tech genius, and that's effectively what happened with Tony and Peter, and now Shuri and Riri. Of course, we had the added comedy of Okoye stepping in and basically just threatening to take her conscious or unconscious.
You come with me, walking or not walking, you're coming with me. Especially when she's like Shuri goes to her room, and then she realizes, oh my God, she within a few seconds realizes who she is. Oh my God, you're Princess Shuri. Wait a minute, am I being recruited? Is this the moment I'm being recruited? And she's like, no, that's not what we're doing here.
Even though ultimately that is exactly what happened.
Yes. And she is fangirling out because, again, it's that moment that she never thought would come, nor she realized would be happening. It's like, oh my God, I'm with Wakanda royalty. I'm exactly who, just tell me what you want to do. And then you get the revelations well, actually, I just designed that to prove my professor that I could, and the government stole it. I didn't give it to the government. It's like, oh, well, of course, now that totally fits exactly with what the U.S. government in the portrayal of this, as we have seen so many times throughout the MCU, unfortunately, you can't trust the U.S. government. Big shocker.
Not very often, it seems, and once again, you can't. They go back to Riri's garage to get her laptop, which he talks about having 256-bit encryption on it or something like that, needing a quantum computer to break back into it when she locked herself out once. So I'm like, oh, tech genius forgot her password, huh? But it pretty cool there, and I noticed Shuri's looking at some plans, and she makes this comment that doesn't really get answered. Is this Stark Tech you're working on right now? They don't really answer it, but I mean, they do answer it. They just answer it by showing instead of telling, because at this point, not long after this, when the FBI or whatever who bust in and she puts on her suit, they're like, oh man, she's got an Iron Man or something to that effect. And it's like, the influence is obviously there, but we haven't dove into why yet. We haven't gone into too much of the details there. I guess they're saving that for her TV show.
Yeah, especially you see the car, and she references the car. The car is a very big importance, and I think she kind of mentions it, but she really goes into it at the end of the movie of how important this car is. This is her father's car. This is one of the last pieces she has of him, because spoiler alert for what's more than likely going to get revealed in the series, he's gunned down in front of her, and so it's one of the last pieces that she actually still holds on to of her father. But then they're kind of pointing up, and you don't see it. They're just pointing up, does that work too? and at that moment, it's like, oh, they're pointing to the suit. We're going to start seeing this thing in action very quickly.
Yeah, it didn't take long at all. I like how Riri tried to say that the car didn't work. And Shuri says, no, everything in this room, everything in this lab works. She could immediately tell, game recognizes game, I guess, right? But yeah, she just immediately knew, and had this respect for what she was seeing.
And that was, it was one of those things when the FBI shows up, I'm like, okay, Ross is not one to rat out them at that point. So either Ross got found out, or there's a mole somewhere, or they're following, or Shuri and Okoye are not being as careful as they should be. I mean, that purple tracksuit, bravo for channeling what she needs to channel at that point, but they're also not blending in, especially the Okoye's, marvelous sunglasses, Okoye, but my goodness.
Yeah,
You're not blending in with them either.
We later would find out that there was some little bit of spying going on.
Yes.
But that wouldn't have come into play yet.
Correct.
So I tend to lean towards they were just spotted, and odds are the government knows who they took this tech from, right? They were probably already watching her.
And kind of with that idea of just like not being as careful, they're being a little sloppy in the sense of like following it at that point. But then the FBI is like, all right, we're coming in at that point. Well, you've got Shuri getting on one of the bike. You've got Okoye driving the truck, or excuse me, the vehicle. And then you get Riri suiting up in her Mark 1. And it is more like more impressive that thing freaking flies and is able to handle himself, because it is legitimately a frame. Like like Tony's is like an actual suit. Hers is basically a frame.
Yeah, but it doesn't just fly. Like, she has like real control over it.
Yeah,
right? Like she is clearly starting from a much more advanced place than where Tony did back in 2008.
Correct. Now that chase through the streets in the air, that was a pretty banging chase. I mean, if I had to choose which one was better, the first movie or the second movie, the first movie still wins it at this point, but this was still pretty cool.
Yes, that first chase in Korea in the first one, yeah, like that's definitely the chase. But here, it was still a fun little scene. I especially enjoyed seeing Okoye throw the spear down through the floor of the car to utilize basically to turn the car into a spear is effectively what she managed to do.
Yeah, and there's definitely a number of Iron Man references with the FBI calling out they've got an Iron Man suit or something like that. Now, definitely references back to the first movie in the sense of her going all the way up to take out the drone. This is where I kind of had a little suspension of disbelief in the sense of like she's not in a suit. Her face is clear out there at that point, and the suit's warning her about oxygen levels depleting. Not only that, like it gets very cold up there. Like your body won't be able to handle it cold. If you remember the first Iron Man movie, warning about like the frost taking over the rockets and the suit staying online. Like just at the moment saying she's able to take down the drone that's following, keeping tabs on it, and then she loses consciousness. Again, believable, but also a little bit not believable in the sense of like, I don't know if you'd really survive being naked skin out there,
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I'm gonna just comic book wave that one away, I guess.
Totally. Again, I'm that way. I was like, we're playing a little bit with how you designed it, but what the real cool thing was the ambush on the bridge. That whole sequence was just something that was one of the coolest moments at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah, great fight scene. Great. They make a point. I think it's later in the movie, but basically we're told like all these soldiers have superhuman strength, right? Like they're all stronger, and that makes sense if you think about it. Like living at the bottom of the ocean and stuff, they're going to be stronger. And Okoye takes on 3 of them. And she doesn't just take them on, like she beats them. She beats those 3. It's not until Atuma comes in that she ends up losing.
Yeah, especially correct me if is Atuma ever specifically named in this movie outside of credits at that point? That's one thing.
They say it like one time.
Okay.
There's a line where he says like Nomura, Atuma, and you see them in like when they're not blue, which I will just tell you, I was a little confused on why sometimes they were blue and sometimes they were like, I get it for Namor, but the others, like, why were they not always blue? I'm not entirely sure I followed that, but there's this like one sequence where they name them. Yes.
I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, you're right. You were right at that point. But yeah, Atuma versus Okoye, will keep coming back to this at that point. And Atuma beats her,
Hmm.
and beats her pretty
Pretty,
soundly.
yeah.
And that's where they basically, at that moment, the Television Warriors are going or defeats them all, with Atuma leading them, and you get Namora too. At that point, like they didn't hold their own too much against them. Like the Delusions are a force to be reckoned with, and basically Shuri says, "Take me and Riri prisoner. I'm more valuable than Riri is. Like if you have me, I'm the princess of Wakanda. You have bigger bargaining chip to get whatever you want if you have me with you."
Yeah, so they put on their little mask or whatever that, gives them water, and they flip it so that it can give air to Shuri. Take her
Yeah.
on down.
So then we get like flash forward to the next day, and Ross shows up on the bridge investigating what's going on, and he is joined by the director of the CIA, Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Val, don't just say it. They can't say it. We can barely even think it. This I did not see coming at all. Bravo for keeping this under wraps, because that was my first oh moment.
So basically, everything from here on with Don't Call Her Val, I put in that world building category.
Yes.
That didn't really give that much to this movie. As a fan of the MCU at large, I liked it. As just watching Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, it didn't really add that much. But we did a little bit later. We'll get that revelation that they were married. In the comics, she has a relationship with Nick Fury. Here, she's having a relationship with Everett Ross. That's not something I anticipated, but I still like seeing the two of them together. I like hopefully he'll show up in Thunderbolts or something, and we'll get to see more interactions with the two of them. Maybe in a movie where they can influence things a little bit more.
Yeah, you're right. It is world building. This is one of those that it's almost like it fits, but it's not necessary in the overarching purpose of this movie.
Fits but not necessary. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Ross and Val were married. that was also an interesting, tidbit of information.
Yeah, and basically Val is spying on him, because
Yeah.
when Ross shows up, like he finds the beads from Shuri on the ground, and later we find out that she had already found them. She was already there, and she bugged them, and then left them there for him to find. Just way to fall right into her trap, man.
And it's one of those things like as I was watching it, especially, it's like, oh, we're gonna head back to Langley and and we're gonna drive, and Ross is like, that's an 8-hour trip. Yeah, we got time to talk. And when it ends up back, back at the CIA, it's almost like these little moments, like saying, we've only seen Val a number of times in the MCU, but knowing how they're setting her up, I was like, she's a very good spy. She's done. We've seen a lot more of what she can do, and I was like, wait a minute. Well, how is she trusting him? Wait a minute. How did she not notice the note? She's playing him. She's a much better person than Ross is thinking at that point. But it's almost like Ross is thinking like, oh, I got one over on her. But dude, you were married to her. She's your boss. There's a reason. Like I'm glad we now know what she is right now in the MCU as the director of CIA, because until this point, we had no idea outside of she's working for the government, but at what level of Black Ops.
So my question is, was she working for the government when she hired Yelena to go after Clint? That's the question I now have.
Say that again?
Was she working for the CIA when she hired Yelena to go after Clint, or when she sent him on Clint's trail? Basically, did Hawkeye become a target for the government?
Well, since Val is the government in that sense and can sign off on whatever mission she wants necessarily without too much pushback, yes, in a way.
And probably that's an unofficial operation.
Yes.
But it's still kind of an interesting note.
Yeah. So we return back to Wakanda, and Okoye is basically facing the tribal council and explaining that she fails miserably. The princess is kidnapped We don't know if she's alive or dead at this point. They don't have the scientist. And Queen Ramonda's had enough. And she says, for your actions, you are stripped of your title of general and being removed as the leader of the Dora Milaje. And Okoye is just like taken aback. It's like, wait a minute. Put me back out there. I will get her back. I will atone for this. And it's like I've lost, so much already. I've lost my husband. He's, but I'm still with you and things like that. And that moment, this is where we see that moment from the trailer where Queen Ramonda in Elangela said, just that whole, if she is not nominated for some kind of award, and again, what awards are at this point, but that should be the clip that is used when introducing her being nominated for supporting actor, actress, best actress. That speech, in that trailer, that moment saying, I have lost my entire family. I have a night sacrificed enough, just going over this. And so it's like, whoa, back off. You've just crossed the line, Okoye, by saying you've sacrificed enough. You have no idea.
Yeah, and we now have the answer to the question of when does this speech take place? Because in the trailers, it's like, well, yeah, you lost your husband, you lost your son, but your daughter's still alive, so way to just forget about her, right? Well, no, her daughter was just taken from them. She doesn't know if her daughter's still alive. Fantastic speech. That said, I was mad because I was like, no, don't fire Okoye. Okoye is awesome. Is she? Yeah. Is she awesome? We'll find out later. I'll bring that up. But it really, she really is. Denai Guerrero. I love Okoye, and so I was disappointed to see that, but I was disappointed because I cared. So just a powerful scene between these two women, just beautifully acted. Well done for them both. But you gotta give it to Ramonda on this one. She's gonna win the I've sacrificed more game in this case.
Yeah, exactly. So then, Ramonda goes, and what's the AI's name?
Griot
goes to her,
voiced by Trevor Noah.
Yeah, voiced by Trevor Noah. Very good. And Griot, she's asking did she have her beads with her? Did she have her earrings with her? And they were able to locate the beads, and so she's calling the beads, and Ross answers in a not so smooth way, as Val is still in the car and saying, "Oh, hi, honey. Yeah, I'll be a little. Oh, okay, honey. Okay, I'll just leave." Plays it off at that point. He's asking Ramonda, what's going on? They think that Wakanda did all this. And Ramonda's following what Namor told her, saying, if you tell anyone about us, there will be consequences. And so she just tells them that there's another group out there, but doesn't confirm who it is and won't tell them anything more. And Ramonda needs help. She can't trust Okoye to do it right. She's failed. And so she goes to Haiti in order to seek out a former ally. Who does she seek out?
She finds Nakia, she the former war dog, and she's been in Haiti basically, really just performing that Wakandan outreach, right? That they talked about at the end of the first movie. That's just where she happens to be stationed at. She's running a school. She's helping them, a group of kids, including one little boy, come up to Ramonda when she first arrives, looking for Nakia. Let's come back to that later, at the end of the movie, of who one of those little boys is. Mm-hmm. But something I didn't notice till my second time watching it. But regardless, she go, and at this point, I was starting to be like, Nakia's in this, right? I swear I saw her in the trailers.
A couple of times.
I'm like, she was definitely in the trailers, and I know they do those fake trailer scenes, but where is she? Finally, she enters the game.
And again, we get those answers to some questions we've been having. And at this moment in, breaking a little bit of what my theater experience is like, during that beginning of the Haiti sequence, I've got the person sitting next to me taking a phone call. I've got that has never happened. I've seen it happen in my theater, but I'm never right next to the person. I'm usually rows down, so I can easily ignore, but I see it happening right next to me, and I'm like, dude, hang up your phone. Mm-hmm. In front of me, no joke, someone is vaping in front of me.
Sure, like you do.
So I'm not at a moment where I can handle myself with the guy sitting next to me. I'm also like, I actually am kicking the seat of the person vaping and said, dude, are you kidding me? So
You win. You
I,
win. My Friday night or Thursday night crowd was not the best movie crowd either, but not that bad. Dang.
yeah, and this is 3 p.m. on a Thursday. This isn't like 8, 9 p.m. late night showing where you think you can get away with this. There's 3/4 of the theater filled at this point. So, anyways, just wanted to bring that up. But I enjoy finding out these answers, like, because we didn't see Nakia at the funeral, and she's asked, why didn't you come to the funeral? And Nakia gives the answer that is very acceptable. It's like, I didn't want to accept it being final. Like she doesn't. We don't get the full answer of like, did her and T'Challa become married? Were they became more than what it was? Were they hinting at the end of Black Panther? Because we didn't get that answer.
I don't think they did marry. I feel like
Yeah.
if they got married, like that would have been known because
Correct.
she would have basically become the Queen of Wakanda.
Yeah, and so we just understand like they were definitely an item, but she just when she left after the snap, like she didn't come back, and she just established she needed to mourn for what she thought T'Challa was not coming back, but we didn't get an answer of like, okay, when he did get unsnapped and come back, why didn't you come back to Wakanda? Like she just kind of dances around that.
Yeah, and we eventually will find out the true
Yes.
actual answer. But at the time, she just basically plays it up as I couldn't be around where T'Challa was, like one of those like too many memories I had to get out kind of things.
Yeah. I didn't want to be tied down by things. And we kind of got that from her when we first introduced her. We first were introduced to her in Black Panther that she's a war dog, but she's also doing her own agenda with being a war dog.
Right.
So, but she's established a school in Haiti for children. They're growing everything of their food in this school. I mean, it's she's taking everything she knew from Wakanda, but using exactly what's around her in Haiti to give these kids a better life.
Exactly right.
So
Exactly.
we flash back to Shuri and Riri, who are alive and they're being held prisoner. And one of her guards brings over a kind of a wardrobe fit for a princess to meet Namor, and they meet, and he shows her kingdom, his kingdom, and Talosh, am I saying this right? Taloshan, I think.
Talokan.
Talokan, excuse me, Talokan, and which he has protected for centuries, and she discovers that this is another civilization that is basically built on vibranium, which she is completely in shock.
Yeah, and something we didn't say earlier when Namor first came up, he makes a comment about them finding the government's finding vibranium in the ocean floor, and
Yeah.
Ramonda says no, and Shuri says Mom, he's covered in it. Like he,
Yeah.
I mean, not that he's covered head to toe, but what is there is vibranium, and it's really really cool. I feel like how we have these two different hidden nations to the world, or at least Wakanda was, both prospering because of vibranium.
Yeah. And Namor tells Shuri his history, and he has been alive since the late 1500s.
Yeah, the guy's got some age on him. He does say the magic M word that every good Marvel fan likes to hear, and refers to himself as a mutant.
Yep.
And
so,
it's like, yeah, he's the first mutant, right? Like he's supposed to be like the oldest mutant. Oh, unless you want to talk about Apocalypse. But
Yeah.
other than that, potentially, like he, at least on the overall side of good, like, in the grand scheme of things, he's the first one. And of course, in this case, Kamala Khan still beat him to the punch of revealing that for us. But
and no little X-Men theme when he utters the word mutant. So.
right, which really would not be, I mean,
It would be so weird.
but he's actually been a member of the X-Men before. Miss Marvel, to my knowledge, never has been.
He is a member of the. He has been. He is on Krakoa. So
Absolutely. Regardless, it's cool that they actually did that. They actually called him a mutant. So the project that I was so sure they would use that word in Eternals did not use it. And two projects that I would not have anticipated it necessarily is where
Yeah.
where they busted it out. But regardless, I enjoyed this backstory. I've seen some comments from people saying this was a little too exposition heavy or just a little too narratively heavy for what we saw with this culture basically being enslaved. And I don't think I agree with either of those statements. I was pretty fascinated watching these, seeing him. Okay, is young Namor as cool with his flying ankle wings? No, probably not. He's got to grow into his coolness, but it was still, I don't know. I enjoyed these scenes quite a bit.
Yeah, it was something that, again, if we're not doing the Atlantis origin at this point, I was more saying, okay, well, how are we doing this? Like, what is going to be his origin story for the MCU? That's what I was more fascinated by. That smallpox is killing, who would become his people at that point. And one of the shamans found vibranium, and it affected the plant life around them. And so they said, oh, if we take this, we'll be able to be healed. And his mother at the time is pregnant with him. And so we see they all take like the plant or their version of the heart-shaped herb and things like that. They all drink, they all pass out. And then when they awaken, their skin turns blue. They having trouble, they cannot breathe on land. And so when they go to the ocean, they can finally that's living small. They've been able to beat smallpox at that point, but it affected him during the pregnancy, giving him wings on his ankles, pointed ears, invulnerability, ages incredibly slow, super strength, and can breathe underwater and above it. So I mean, what else doesn't he have?
Right, like
Laser beams from his eyes.
They talked about how he basically breathes like a human when he's above the water, and when he's in the water, his skin can just absorb oxygen from it. And so, yeah, he's incredibly powerful, and Baku would later say that he might be as strong as the Hulk, and which was a little weird just hearing the Hulk come from M'Baku's voice. Like,
yeah.
It's not, but it's like, oh, well, they were at the endgame battle together, so okay, I'll go with it. But Namor is just this incredibly powerful being, and even he's more powerful than anybody that Wakanda actually has, right? Like, it truly comes down to just Shuri and Riri, like, they're smarter than him, so they outsmart him. They're able to build technology, which is their wheelhouse, right? To mess with him later, but just his raw power, it's unmatched in this movie.
Yeah, especially telling about his mother's death and how she wanted to be buried where she originally lived, and you see the sequence when they're coming on shore and they see the conquistadors have taken it over, and like they've got enslaved people, and they start attacking them because they're like, these creatures just came out of nowhere, and they start firing. Well, they end them all, and then you get the priest there saying he's a person of no love, which that's how he took his name, Namor.
Yeah, I liked it later when what is it? As people called him, like, Cuckoo Khan or something,
Cuckoo Khan.
The feather serpent god, but he's like, but my enemies, they call me Namor. I was like, okay, all right, that's a little bit of a twist on what my friends call me, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So he's better at the surface world that once rejected him. Namor would prefer an alliance with Wakanda against the rest of the world, but promise to destroy Wakanda if they refuse. They will be the first one to fall under against him at that point. He tells Shuri, like, if you don't get a stern alliance, this Wakanda's over.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And basically, we are going to work together to destroy the world. And I heard what you said back on the beach, that you wanted the world to burn. You wanted to burn the world. Like, if you let yourself think about your brother, that's what you're going to do. You're going to burn everybody. And he's playing to that. He's trying to get her to go along with it. And something I really appreciated here is you can tell she's thinking about it.
Yeah.
She's not this, as we later would definitely see compared, as noble as her brother is, where it's an automatic, no, that's the wrong thing to do, I'm not going to do it. She is truly conflicted about this decision, and while ultimately she does not does not decide to roll with him on this, to go with him, it is still something that she even considered, which is not what you normally would expect from one of your Marvel superheroes.
Yeah, it's because again, she's not another figure like you said later on, but it's one of those like, yeah, we're not necessarily too far off, especially how the world is treating us after we revealed ourselves. They're not acting as equal partners or willing partners to help work with us. Um, we flash to a scene where Ross and Val are meeting with the U.S. military rep at the CIA and the UN ambassador who want to go to war with Wakanda and force destabilization in order to get what they want. And Ross pushes back, saying, no, that's not what's going on here. There's something else at play. And Val backs him, saying, we need to give Ross time to figure this out. But again, she's got her own agenda. And that's when Ross calls Ramonda to warn her what's going on and that the U.S. you need to give me more information to help you out, because whoever this group is, no one is seeing that. All they're seeing is Wakanda fighting the world. Mm-hmm. And that's when Ramonda meets Namor at a kind of an isolated location, and she threatens to go to the CIA to reveal them to the world if he does not free Shuri and Riri. And he says, you do that, and you will never see either one of them again. I will kill them.
Right, like this, like he seemed a little angry that she was threatening him, but he just turns it around on her immediately.
Like,
try me, this is what I'm gonna do.
It's almost like, again, 70% of the world is covered with ocean. I win. You're one nation. I have the entire ocean at my beck and call.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, but during this time, Nakia is breaking into or getting into their city and is able to get into this like cell that they're Riri and Shuri's being held in, and get them to escape with her. And unfortunately, during that time, Nakia kills 2 of the Talosian guards, which not a great move, not the best move at that point, but she's a war dog. She's going to do whatever she can to protect the princess and who's ever in with her. And we get them back to Wakanda. And I thought another good moment was Nakia and Okoye talking with each other.
Yes. That's where we got some of that information about how she just left. And Okoye references that Nakia basically left right after Thanos attacked. So we know that that's around the time that she left. So presumably she'd been gone for 6 years, I think they said. So that would be the 5 years of the blip, and then the year after T'Challa's death.
Yeah. But during this time, Namor takes these deaths very strongly, and so he begins to initiate his attack on Wakanda. And man, what an amazing sequence of how he's able to slowly the water levels are rising, and then all of a sudden, bam, 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 they're all coming out of nowhere. It like tidal waves and this is for someone who may not know the ins and outs of Wakanda, he certainly knows what he can do and strike hard. Especially we see the reappearance of the sirens as they can't get their air guard off at that point. I mean, this is a brutal sequence.
Very hectic, chaotic, just. I mean, lots of moments in it. Jump scare isn't quite the right word, but definitely I noticed people jumping at different sequences throughout it. And, it's great Act 2 action scene, great, seeing like our heroes down on their luck, our heroes have to lose. And it just... Shuri wants to go to battle. Ramonda tells her no. She says, I'm going to anyway. Okay, love you, bye. Hangs up on her. Didn't hung up on the queen. She hung up on her mom. There's a difference. It's just this whole sequence was really... I mean, yes, it was fun to watch, but it was hard to watch at the same time, because it's our heroes are just getting routed. They're barely able to fight back.
Yeah, when Shuri gets to know and she ends up doing it anyway, it just reminds me of Captain Kirk in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, the him talking to McCoy going, is what did the command say? They said no. I am therefore going anyways.
Yep, pretty much.
But like you're saying, they're getting routed. But we see Namor like in this daylight kind of sequence. We see the full power that he can exhibit, not just like on land, but in the air. Especially that haunting image as his wings are flying him at that point in front of the throne room. Ramonda's there, Riri's there, and she's trying to tell Riri, get out of here at this point, and Namor just throws the full force of basically a tidal wave into the throne room, destroying it. And, they're both, Riri are underwater. Ramonda uses all the energy she has to get Riri to the surface. And unfortunately, what we find out is she gave her last ounce of strength to save Riri, but she is killed as a result. She is drowned.
Yeah, Nakia does CPR on Riri, is able to revive her. Okoye is doing it on Ramonda, is not able to revive her. While you have M'Baku holding back Shuri, keeping her from getting in the way effectively. Just really, really powerfully acted scene by Letitia right there. I was thinking about this after my second viewing. Okoye must feel like she's just like the biggest failure ever. And I'm not saying I feel that way, but from her perspective, right? King T'Chaka died when she was the general. Yep. She wasn't there, but he still died when she was the general, right? Mm-hmm. And then T'Challa dies in Infinity War in front of her eyes. He later dies from an illness.
Well, he also dies in front of her in Black Panther 2.
You're absolutely right, but that's a little different because it was part of ritual combat when she couldn't be in it. But you're right, she still had to witness it. And then on top of that, Shuri is kidnapped on her watch when she had just so confidently said she'll be fine, I'll be there with her. And then now she is unable to revive Ramonda. And yeah, like we know that like CPR is effective, but it's not like 90% probability or anything like that. Like I forget the statistics, but it's far lower than that. But and again, I'm not saying she's this massive failure, but she has got to just feel like this massive failure.
Batting average is pretty low at this point.
Pretty low. Yeah, she's having a rough season for sure.
And Namor is watching this go on with the queen, that he killed her, and says, I will return in 1 week with a full force. You either join me or I will level this city.
Yeah, and he does spare them, which makes sense, right? Because he's not trying to wipe them out. He would prefer that they join him. And he even says to Shuri at this moment, like, you're the queen now, right? Like, he could tell she was thinking about it earlier. Like, you're the queen. You need to do this. Like, and he doesn't. Like, I saw some people saying, like, they're like, why wouldn't he just not have wiped them all out then? Because he didn't want to do that. He wanted their technology. He wanted their help, their knowledge of the surface world to help him in his overall conquest of the world. But if they weren't going to be with him, he was going to take him out before they could stop him.
Yeah. But that brings us to the close of Act 2. So looking at our chat, we got David saying the unsung hero of the car chase scene is Trevor Noah as the AI. Started off as the voice in the ship. Agent Ross, controlled in Black Panther 1, now full AI. Yep. All in the game saying Val MC world building notes that Kulu received.
Probably. Yep.
Probably. Yep. Would have put it past him with that one. Also saying fantastic throne room scene with Okoye.
I want to mention with the throne room scene, I forgot to say this earlier, and this does not fit the tone of that room. But when she, like you watch a cop show and they do the equivalent of turn in your badge and gun.
Yeah.
She turned in her spear, right? She slammed it down into the ground. And they then cut a couple times to showing the spear in the ground, and the ground all around it is messed up. And all I could think is, how many times have they just slammed their spears into the ground in that room? Because that's something they do on a regular basis. And she was tearing that floor up if you look at
it. David saying Queen Mother's speech hit me both times I watched it. Heinz is trying to be funny in the chat. What is love?
Trying
baby,
to be funny.
Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Yeah, I get it. I see what you're doing there. I will give you that. How's that feel? How's that working out for you being clever? So
all right. It's all right. He's done better.
He has. And then David also saying Namor's line, "Bury your dead, mourn your losses. You are queen now," was just an amazing moment between the two.
Yes.
So, but all right, we're going to take our next ad break before we head into our final act. Listeners, as always, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on. They can be a bit loud, so give it a 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right, last act, and this is, we got a lot going on to tie up with where we're at this point in this movie.
Yeah, so start off with second funeral of the movie. I am still surprised that they killed Ramonda.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
I couldn't believe it.
We knew there would be one character death in this movie, right? Like we already knew that. Like there had to be. I genuinely did not expect another named Wakandan character to die.
Especially as high up in how much she had been prominently featured,
right,
in the trailers, the marketing for this, on top of Shuri. But yeah, it's just like leaving Shuri, that she is the last, as far as she knows, of her line of family. No one else is there. And especially what was more hard-hitting is Shuri and M'Baku's discussion after the funeral, that M'Baku promised T'Challa he would look after Shuri and be her basically Jiminy Cricket, as it were, her confidant, her person that not only would protect her physically, but also be that person to get some sense into her head. And he says basically the council has gone to him asking if he will protect and carry have the rest of the Wakandans live out in, I forget the name of his city. Or his area, but anyways, that he
just the Jabari land.
Jabari, yeah, the Jabari, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's basically looking to her, saying, "Would you also agree to this before I do this?" And she says, "Yes, I will." But he basically says, like, you have to not let vengeance define you. Like, this is a dark, like, you need to find some way to live. And she's just like, I've lost everything. What's the point of going on any further at this point?
Yeah, she at this point, she's basically, to borrow a line from the end of Civil War and from later in this movie, vengeance is consuming her. All she wants is revenge on him. That's all she cares about at this point. Is she's really not acting in the best interest of Wakanda. Arguably, she just wants revenge. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so Shuri and Riri go back to her lab, and Shuri is looking at the bracelet that Namor had given her and knows it contains vibranium. She starts putting some ideas together and saying that's when she goes to her AI and says, "Hey, analyze this bracelet and see, that basically gives his people underwater abilities, and see if she can synthetically reconstruct a heart-shaped herb from that." And they discover that, during this time, that they need to dry out Namor's skin in order to weaken him. And they're able to, after a number of trials, she's able to successfully recreate a new heart-shaped herb.
Yeah, it takes a few tries, and she gets to, I think they said 98% viability or success rate or probability. And, it works, and the key is there. They're like, how are we going to know if it worked? It'll start to glow. And it's, that first one that had the less than 30% chance, it didn't glow. So it wasn't going to work to begin with. But this one, it did work. They're able to modify the ceremony a little bit, but basically perform the ceremony to give her the heart-shaped herb powers.
Yeah. And so she ingests the herb, and she goes and enters the ancestral plane. And she's hoping to either see her brother, see Ramonda, She wasn't prepared for who was sitting on the throne, and that would be Eric Killmonger. We had heard rumors, we had heard a lot of scuttlebutt and smoke that Michael B. Jordan would be in this movie at that point, and we had thought about like, oh, would he be the new Black Panther? Would he be something? And we had toyed around with the idea like, no, technically, if he's dead, then he would be on the ancestral plane. That would be a point to see Killmonger in. And man, just like Angela Bassett owns the stream, man, I'm telling you, Michael B. Jordan knows he may just be in for this one sequence, but he chews up the scene. Like, it was like he is back in his element as Eric Killmonger. Like, he challenges her, and I'm like, you could have had anyone here. Somehow you're seeing me. Don't you think there's something to that?
There'd been those like someone, I forget the exact quote, asked him if he would be interested in coming back, like press for another movie or something. And he basically is like, well, yeah, I would be, but like I'm dead. But like if there's a way to do it, that'd be cool, right?
Yeah.
I kind of anticipated that he would be the one that she would see because it's her cousin. It just, to me, it made sense. And then the way the movie went with Ramonda dying, I'm like, well, I guess I was wrong, and they're probably going to have her see Ramonda. Nope, wrong again, back to the first time. And no, it's Killmonger, and he just turns around in that chair. It's just so awesome. I love that they were able to include him, that they found a way to include him in a way that just makes organic sense for the movie. It didn't feel shoehorned at all. It didn't feel like something where it's like it's cool to have, but you could take it out pretty easily. Like, no, it was an important part of the movie. Absolutely great scene.
Yeah, especially when he says to her, you're not understanding that you are more like me than you care to admit, and that is why you're seeing me. You need to do. What are you going to be? It says, are you going to be noble like your brother?
Nope.
Or are you going to do what needs to be done?
And we wouldn't necessarily see it till later, but we basically find out that she says like Namor is going to beg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she wakes up and she's very frustrated. She's not saying anything like to Nakia, to Riri. He's like, "Who'd you see? What happened?" Like, no, I can't do it. And then it's when she punches one of the models that's wearing one of the Dora Milaje's suits at that point, and it just go bam right against the wall. It's like, oh, not only did this work, this is your new heart-shaped herb. Like, you now have the powers of the Black Panther. And Nakia, was it Nakia that said, you gotta get a suit.
Gotta get a suit. Riri asked if she can get some of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, you gotta ask the question, why doesn't she give more of that stuff to more people? But for the story they're telling, I'll roll with it.
Yeah. And so then we flash to Val showing up in Ross's kitchen and reveals that she found the Kimoyo beads before he got there, bugged them, and she has been listening to everything that's been going on. And she's like, you need to tell me everything what's going on, because you're had these treasonous conversations with the queen, so you're already going to jail. It's just a question of for how long.
Yep, exactly right. So and sure enough, she had him arrested. Like, that's cold. But what ex-wife hasn't wanted to have their ex-husband arrested, right?
Exactly. It takes two to tango, right?
That's right.
So then we flash to the Jabari tribe. All the councils there, Wakandans are being transported there, and they're all just saying, like, what are we going to do? How, Namor's going to come back. We have an answer. And he basically says, like, we take down, Namor, we are in a lifelong war with them. Like, he is their god. We cannot do that necessarily. And as he's hearing all this stuff, trying to get some reason with people, which is interesting for M'Baku to kind of say he looked like one who wants war. He's actually trying to go for peace. The sky opens up and drops down is our new Black Panther. Everyone's like, oh my God, who is this? And being revealed to everyone, it is Shuri, which is what we've been saying pretty much since the idea of like, who's going to be the next Black Panther. they tried to dance around this. Like, oh, it may not be sure, maybe multiple people. People's like, oh, well, it's like, a little bit of like, oh, we've already saw this coming. But I'm glad the suit looks amazing. On the big screen, the suit looks absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. The suit looks great. In that moment she drops down, she takes off the mask, and she sort of arm wrestles with M'Baku.
Yeah.
Like it's a little weird there. Like it starts off almost looking like a handshake, and it basically I think is just him testing her strength.
Mm-hmm.
And when he just like stands up and screams the Black Panther lives and everyone starts cheering, like that was a chills inducing moment right there. Just actual chills, some tears going along with it, like just such a great, powerful, beautiful moment that we got to have. And like you can see it's like on Shuri's face, like she's happy she was able to do that. At the same time she's still mourning her brother, and they were able to bring him back. And then I love that she basically says, "Can I speak with Lord M'Baku alone?"
Yeah.
And recognizing the importance that getting him on board with her plan has, because he is unquestionably the best fighter, the best military person they have on the council. Mm-hmm. And because, I mean, keep in mind, the Dora is not on the council. And so in the council of elders, basically. And earlier, they had even said, why do you not want to kill him now when you wanted to earlier? And he's pointing out, well, he now sees how his armies view him as the feather. Mm-hmm. They view him more as the feather serpent god. Just great scene all around.
Yeah. And, again, M'Baku's advising Shuri, you need to seek peace. This is a battle that we can't stand toe to toe with them. Like he is not confident that they will win this fight. And Shuri's determined to get revenge for Ramunda's death and orders basically M'Baku and says, no, we're going to go to war. We're going to do a counterattack for what they did to us. And as they're kind of building up arms, things like that, we get this at the beginning of the movie with a suit that she's building for Okoye and the Dora of a new kind of suit, which she says, like, Okoye doesn't like it. And when it's fully done, she shows it to her. It's like, she still doesn't like the suit. Like, she calls them the Midnight Angels. I thought the suit was okay. It just, it just didn't, it seemed to, and I think Geek First Guys kind of nailed it on the head. Like, what was it? Biomechanical, whatever that Lego thing is.
I think I tend to agree with Okoye. It's ugly.
Yeah. It's
highly, highly functional for this case. It's basically like a small Iron Man suit. She's made a couple of them. I don't love it. I think it makes sense in the story.
Yeah, I'll agree with that, but you're right, but I don't have to like it.
Right.
So the Wakandans, during the scene we get Riri also building her suit, a lot of homages to the, Tony building the suit in the cave. A lot of different things with that going on at that time as well. So building her suit, which we finally see the Mark II of hers later on in the battle. But the Wakandans use the seafaring vessel, the Sea Leopard, to set the trap for Namor because, again, her big thing is Namor's going to come to us. We'll go to him, but he's going to come to us, luring him and his warriors to the surface, and a battle ensues.
I already know people are complaining that Riri's Mark II advanced too much, so I do want to point out that she was making it in Wakanda with access to vibranium, with access to Shuri for help, and they even show Shuri looking at the plans and talking to her about them. So it's like, I just want to make sure we get that on the record. It's like, she didn't just make this on her own. This wasn't just with her regular resources she had back in her garage.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what did you think of this basically our end sequence battle?
Vicious is the word that comes to mind, right? Like they almost do the reverse siren song on them, driving them all to the surface.
Yep.
And then just going after them. I guess the only, from the Wakandan side, the biggest question I have is, why did she wait so long to call in the Midnight Angels? I'm like, they could have saved lives if you had let them into play earlier. But I loved seeing, this is where I liked what the Midnight Angels did, like seeing them fly around, while Black Panther was, running around doing her thing. We have the Ironheart suit and stuff. Like, it was quite the spectacle to watch.
Oh yeah, they definitely, threw all the money at this sequence to make it kind of the big ending battle at that point. You know, Riri's Mark II suit, again, it serves its purpose. It shows again that, what she's going to be capable of doing, and we know there's going to be more of it in her series at that point. But Shuri is able to separate Namor from the rest of the people and signals Okoye and Anika to back up with their Midnight Angel suits. And on the ship, Namor's not going to be held prisoner for that, because he realizes she's trying to dry him out and forces the ship to crash. And then they get basically a hand-to-hand fight to the death on the beach. And it's one of those things where Shuri is stabbed through her basically abdomen. Like there's a lot of vital organs that are, catastrophically damaged at that point. Heart-shaped herb or not, I always thought, comic books, like, okay, she's going to get through this, but it's like,
I wondered if her suit had any kind of healing properties as well. Like, it healed itself, it repaired itself. I wondered if it did. And I will say, during this moment, this is one of those scenes where you really were missing T'Challa, because the T'Challa and Namor relationship in the comics, I'm going to go with relationship, is quite fun to see play out. Times when they hate each other, times when they hate each other, but they're at least still working together. And I will say this, Shuri won, but just barely, right?
Yeah.
T'Challa would have destroyed Namor in this situation. Mm-hmm. If he had put him through the dehydrating machine of the royal ship and then gotten him away from the water this way, with his already significantly better fighting skill that he had, would have destroyed him. Would have been fun to watch.
Would have been. I wonder if he would get to utter Imperious Rex at that moment.
He would have been too busy getting his face bopped on the ground, I think.
Yeah, I fully agree with that.
And the Imperious Rex moment, by the way, really reminded me of Avengers Assemble from Steve in Endgame. Like, you expect it to be like, in the comics, it's always like this big, loud, boisterous thing, right? Like, it's the big, huge speech bubbles with all the spikes and stuff coming off them to signify the characters yelling. This was much more subdued. Reminded me of Steve.
Yeah, so, Shuri is able to free herself as Namor is trying to get to water to get his strength back, and she's able to activate one of the damaged engines to burn away whatever Namor has left of any kind of, like, strength. And, yeah, she basically takes the spear and puts it to his neck, and that's the decision she's got to make. Either to spare his life or to kill him. And during that time, she sees Ramonda in the ancestral plane telling her, show him who you really are. Paralleling Ramonda telling T'Challa in the first movie, only it's this time T'Challa that loses the fight at the end.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Show him who you are. Ramonda says that a couple times in the first movie, and they say it again in here. And where earlier in the movie, Shuri was talking about Ramonda just having that construct, it was just a figment of her imagination. She now has that as well with her own mother. Nice little circular there, like closing the circle there. I appreciated that.
So she leans on, she's going to offer him peace. So Shuri offers a peaceful alliance to save his people when she remembers the mercy her brother T'Challa showed. Namor accepts, realizing that a shared desire for vengeance should not affect their people, and the battle ends, and they both show up, ending the battle that's going on the Sea Leopard. And this is where we kind of start bringing a movie to a close. But Namor is very upset at Namor yielding to Shuri, but he promises that Shuri's empathy for her people is useful, and that Wakanda needs them because it has no other allies in the world. The Black Panther is the most powerful person in the most powerful nation in the world. And so kind of when you talked to me about predictions, you had said, is there going to be an alliance? And I said yes, but it's going to be a very uneasy and kind of like a very tenuous alliance at that point. And that kind of discussion with Namor proves my point. Like, this is not a true alliance.
Right, like I had thought maybe Atuma would be, whispering in his ear, the devil on his shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and it really wasn't that situation here. There was no third party involved that they teamed up with to
No
fight
Doctor Doom.
together. No Doctor Doom. No anything else that the two of them had to team up for. They're gonna save that for next time, I guess.
Yeah. And again, I'm glad they did not kill Namor because again, this is not someone that is a one and done villain. This is someone that is going to be a major antagonist, not just for Wakanda, but for many others in the MCU.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, completely agree.
But then we flash back to Wakanda, where Shuri meets Riri in the lab, and she says, "Hey, you're heading back to Cambridge soon. Gonna have to tell you, you're gonna have to lead the Mark II here. You know, it's a little too advanced for you to take back home with you. But as a trade off, I have found all the parts of your damaged car, and you get to take that home with you."
Yeah, she did that awfully fast, but all
I
right,
know.
we'll go with it. We'll go with it.
It's just like a game show saying, "Oh, sorry you lost, but you got some lovely parting gifts for you.
Yep,
A new
consolation
car,
prize. A new old car, maybe.
new old car." And so, Shuri says, "Hey, you gonna head back, or are you gonna kind of stick around here?" And she's like, "Nah, I got some things I got to do. One or two more things I've got to take care of." And so then we flash to the waterfall where all the tribes are there. And it's being announced that Shuri's going to be there. And it's not Shuri that gets off the plane, but M'Baku. And he says that she won't be joining them there, and that he would like to challenge for the throne. So
I think he's king.
yeah, I think he's king too. And a lot of this movie really grew the character. I mean, M'Baku had a very, very impressive character arc in this, in that he is not just the ruler of the Jabari. Like, he and T'Challa had these discussions off screen about protecting Shuri, being that counsel to her, but being the person to step up to the plate and bring in the Wakandans to the Jabari when they needed them the most. Like, I'm okay with him being king if this ends up being true, because there is a lot of precedent for a ruler of Wakanda and a different person being Black Panther. We saw it in Civil War.
Yes, we did. And it's important to remember they showed us him being a leader multiple times. He talks about not wanting eternal war, that, Ramonda would not want that for Shuri. He does not want that for his people, the Jabari. But he also welcomed all of Wakanda in. He refers to himself as a son of Wakanda. He, when the Talokans attack and he sees a couple people that were on a boat go underwater and start to drown, he goes and gets them. They weren't Jabari, but he goes after them. So he's proving he'll save everyone at that point. Little continuity error there, because he gave his staff away to one of his people, and then he jumps in and goes and get him. He climbs out of the boat later, and he's got the staff with him. I'm like, okay, guys, I see. I didn't get away with that one. But M'Baku absolutely has developed into this leader, and he has proven that, I think, throughout. Like, his instincts are solid, and he's not just, whereas he started the first movie out only for the Jabari, he's into this movie as being for Wakanda.
Yeah, again, the whole thing with the Jabari rejecting the technology, rejecting this, I think that it's his rule is not okay, we're going back on everything. We're going back to the quote unquote Stone Age. You don't need this technology. I think he sees exactly that there can be a balance, and he can represent that balance at that point. We get a scene where Ross has been arrested and he's being transported, and the transport is forced to stop for some fallen trees on the road. And as we were just kind of waiting for, someone's going to rescue him, and it's none other than Okoye rescuing the colonizer. She makes a comment saying, colonizer, it's kind of interesting to see you in cuffs here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So now he's on the run, so we'll see what happens with that.
Well, we won't be waiting too much longer to see Mr. Everett Ross. So Secret Invasion comes to mind.
Yep.
And so then the last scene of the movie, we get Shuri going to Haiti to meet Nakia. She says, "Do you want to do this? I can join you." She's like, "No, I need to do this on my own." And she goes to the beach in front of a fire and burns her funeral robe, like Ramonda wanted her to do. allowing herself to grieve as she remembers many moments of T'Challa. And at that point, I'd already cried early in the movie, cried at different times. That's another one I was tearing up at, just because it was those moments. I never met Chadwick Boseman, I never had, but like the movies I'd seen him in and all the press that he'd done leading up to Wakanda Forever, Black Panther, the first one, just he represented so much to so many people. And just seeing Shuri almost at the same moment, more than likely it's also Letitia Wright grieving at that moment. It's just these were cathartic moments that she is allowing herself to grieve and remember and to start moving forward.
Yeah.
It was very, very heartfelt scene.
Well said. I could not agree with that more. Could not have said it better.
But we're not done with that scene, because the mid credits, the only credits, continues that sequence.
It does.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, Nakia walks up, and she's not alone. She has a little boy whom, for the record, we saw earlier in the movie when Ramonda first goes to Haiti. He is the first boy that walks up to Ramonda, basically. Like the first time, it's like no, but the second time, I'm definitely the Leo meme, pointing like, I see you, you're there, kid. I see what you're doing there.
Yep.
And he is introduced as a Tucson, I think was his name, and you could just see right there, like, Shuri didn't know what to think, right? Like a little bit of relief almost, like, oh, she's not alone. She has family, but at the same time, it's like, oh, and she's maybe upset she didn't know this kid existed. Great casting, by the way. You totally believe this kid's a young Chadwick Boseman. Great scene.
Yeah, no, it's revealing that they had a son and Nakia had been raising him in secret, far from the throne. That's what T'Challa wanted also. Now, in the comics, he does have a son named Azari, whose mother is Aurora Monroe, also known as Storm, but that is not in 616 proper. In a different universe, in the multiverse, they have this child, and he's from a post-apocalyptic universe, and he's part of the next Avengers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So she tells Shuri that T'Challa had planned for them to be in hiding for when he was going to be dying, and he did not want her to go to the funeral because he did not want that they had a son revealed. He wanted his son to forge his own path. And when he was ready to return to assume the throne, he can be better king because he will grow up outside of Wakanda. He will understand the world better and be the bridge between Wakanda and the rest of the world. This was the lesson he learned from Killmonger.
So I love the moment where he says, your mom says you're good at keeping secrets. And that's my Haitian name. And she just immediately looks back to him, and in Wakandan, who are you? Which is a big thing where they say, especially a lot in the first movie, especially with Killmonger and stuff, when he's like begging them to ask who he is, so he can say, in this case, T'Challa, Prince T'Challa, son of King T'Challa.
Yeah, at that moment, I just that's when I started crying. Because it was. Chadwick lives on, T'Challa lives on, and one could be saying, oh, well, this is how they're going to do it. This is how we can have another T'Challa in the MCU. And you know what? Guess what?
You're right.
Yes. This is how it happens. Like, oh, you can't, we have to recast things like that. You don't have to now. You don't have to do that necessarily. Yeah, it's going to be a number of years before that happens. And you know what? That's okay. But the thing at the end of this is, like, Shuri doesn't wallow in her grief or in the past. She can have optimism for the future and can protect the future of Wakanda being. It's not going to be like a Killmonger moment where he's going to go, hey, auntie, where he's going to be this different person. But T'Challa saw what happened to him growing up in Wakanda, protected in Wakanda. But he also saw what happened to Eric Killmonger, who had enough baggage, which is why when he came there, he was going to be a different and more vicious ruler. Like, there's hope for T'Challa's son of seeing the world around him and being like I said, that bridge between the world. Like, there is hope for this future. And I don't see him walking into Wakanda and going to M'Baku and say, "This is my throne, get out of here,"
Right.
He's going to be very different. It was just a very poetic ending to a phase that has dealt with a ton of grief, a ton of post-traumatic stress, PTSD. This was a way to give hope towards what the future of the MCU is going to be as we head towards as we lead deeper into the multiverse saga. There's nothing multiverse in this, but it's something to close out what this phase has been about, dealing with identity and dealing with trauma.
They continue the identity motif that is so strong throughout Phase 4, especially with Shuri, of who she is as a person without her family, and who the Black Panther is, and that they're one and the same. Absolutely, this movie is very much about identity, like so much else is.
Yeah. So, but yeah, looking at some of the comments in the chat, David saying another CNN crawl, this time about the Asgard Treaty. All in the game, the Midnight Angels suit was there for the Easter egg hunters. Yep, primarily. Yep, probably. All in the game also saying, give me, if I can click. Is it letting me click? Nope, it's not letting me click.
Give me the Dora Milaje Disney Plus show with Ayo, Hanika, and Okoye getting more screen time and yes, I am with him on that.
Yeah, so for whatever reason, my mouse is not working. Yeah, Brent, you may have to start clicking these. For some reason, my mouse is not working on clicking these over.
Sure. All in the game also mentioned good character development for M'Baku throughout the movie, and references to Saint, an incredibly powerful and relevant Haitian name for T'Challa's son.
Gotcha. Can you click that off? Or
yeah.
No. Maybe my screen's not letting me do it. Oh, you're able to click it off?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
We're good.
Well, all right. Well, there we are. So, but yeah, so this was, I mean, man, this movie hit on a lot of levels. It dealt with a lot. Before we get into kind of our rankings, kind of lessons, last thought, we've had this, this question has been uttered since, the movie was done, in the sense of the argument for T'Challa should be recast versus the decision not to recast. After seeing this movie, what do you feel about that decision of not recasting?
Well, I definitely have never wanted them to recast in this situation. Yes, eventually it's going to happen, but I felt like this was too soon, and this has just reaffirmed that opinion for me. I missed him. I am still glad that they did not recast.
Yeah, I'm definitely at the point when they didn't recast. I said, I get it. I totally understand. This was a actor who was much larger than life and represented a lot to so many people. The way they set up the future for it allows to be recasting without necessarily taking away what Chadwick did for this role, this part. I understand the argument that the role and the character is bigger than any one person. I understand that, and that is a fair argument. I'm not trying to dissuade it, but I think the way Coogler, Feige, and the team has found a way to work around that and still honor it while still giving a future, I think they did something that I was like, wow, bravo, that this works. So
it does work, and someday they will recast T'Challa proper, and that's fine. But for right now, I'm glad they didn't.
So where do you see some of these characters? Where do we see them next?
I mean, Shuri as Black Panther. Good question. I don't. I mean, I think M'Baku's the ruler of Wakanda now, so I don't think that. But I could see her maybe going out on missions, almost the equivalent of like War Dog missions, but as the Black Panther, just trying to do that outreach that T'Challa had argued for at the end of the first movie.
Yeah. Ross, as we said, probably going to see next in Secret Invasion, basically on the run, because now it makes kind of more sense of the kind of garb he's looking at in that trailer. Val, on the other hand, do we see the Thunderbolts movie focused on them invading Wakanda to destabilize it? Do you think the story continues?
I hope not. If Bucky's with the Thunderbolts, I would hate to see him betray Wakanda that way.
Well, he's already kind of betrayed him in some of their eyes.
Yes, but I think that's a very different situation than him
I agree.
actively trying to steal vibranium.
True. So, but all right. So where, rating out of 10, where do you kind of rank this? You've seen it twice. I've seen it once.
Yeah, I think I always struggle with the rating part, but I'll just call it a 9 out of 10. It wasn't perfect, but I think it was a great movie. Again, like I said, they had this really just horrific challenge that they had to work through to still make the movie, and they managed to make the movie in a way that both honored Chadwick Boseman while also pushing the narrative forward that they can go with, and they did so successfully. I actually have it also ranked currently number 9 on my MCU rankings.
Gotcha.
So it's right behind Captain America: The First Avenger and right in front of Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. Little quibbles here and there. At that point, it's not a perfect movie. It doesn't have to be a perfect movie, but man, the challenge that we keep on saying that they had to deal with, they hit on so many levels of this, dealing with so much at that point, setting up some things for the future, but also honoring what was that they had to deal with at that point. In my rankings, it is number 8 for me. What is in front of it is Loki and Avengers Infinity War. Behind it is the first Avengers movie, WandaVision, and Shang-Chi has been knocked out of my top 10.
We're pretty similar. Not necessarily the same numbers, but pretty similar in our grouping overall.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I to put something in my top 10 and to even knock out Shang-Chi from that top 10 doesn't mean that Shang-Chi shouldn't be there. It's just like, man, right now I still put WandaVision just a little bit ahead of Shang-Chi, and some might consider to be, well, that's kind of unfair because it's an hour and a half movie versus kind of a series you guys said. Yeah, but there's something that hits a little bit stronger.
It's still just the projects that you're comparing.
Yep, it's still projects, but yeah, there's something just hits a little bit deeper with WandaVision than Shang-Chi for me. But still, great movie.
I have this in front of Shang-Chi, but I will probably rewatch Shang-Chi more. But
fair.
This movie's a bit more of a downer, if you will, than Shang-Chi is.
Yeah, so, but all right, well, we've given our rankings, and any final thoughts before we bring it to a close?
Just job well done. Bravo.
Yeah.
Ryan Coogler, Nate Moore, the producer, they did it, right? Like, they did it. So not that I doubted that they could, it's just, man, the deck was stacked against them, but they pulled it off.
Yeah, they definitely pulled it off. So, but all right, well, volume 137 in the books. Next week we'll be back to our normal scheduled time. Obviously, our first story is going to be looking at the box office, see what it does this weekend, and a couple of some other stories that were like, oh, these definitely could have carried us in an episode. So we got a lot to talk about next week. But again, Brent, tell people how they can follow you.
Yeah, you can follow me at BrentTech Prime on Twitter and TikTok. Those are still currently the only 2 social networks I'm on. Maybe that'll change at some point, but not right now.
Yeah. And again, want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. Use that code MarvelGUA at checkout for $2 off every single order. And you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balgi. You can follow my other show, World's Finest True Believers, at Finest Believers. You can follow this show on Twitter at Marvel 8 Podcast. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network at GUA Pod Network. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, ask fact or fictions, questions, give us your feedback for Black Panther. I'd keep those, again, if it's spoiler filled, put those in our DMs at that point. We want to be, respectful, give it 2 weekends for everyone to kind of see it before we, let spoilers free at that point. Continue to rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed, the GUA feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcatcher of choice. We want to thank you everyone for joining us live in the chat. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, we'll stick with our, Black Panther, of what next for Black Panther in the sense of Disney Plus and the Black Panther spinoffs. So, talking to Variety, Coogler's, mentioning exactly, we had heard him, officially working on a deal with Disney Plus to get some kind of World of Wakanda series. And he's kind of dodging his future of what's going to lie for him. He says right now it's very difficult because you're exhausted, you're emotionally spent, and I'm trying to give all my full attention. But after that, I'll figure out what's going on with me. But I think it's going to be some rest and family time. But in a separate interview, he said the world is expansive and there are so many great characters beyond what happened in this film. There are more opportunities to go back to Wakanda. And he teased he's got some ideas for the Disney spinoff of, and there are others that would be completely new. And although the producer avoided answering exactly how many spinoff projects in development, he said there is no shortage of ideas. Let's put it that way. So more official stuff saying like these projects are going to see fruition. I mean, really, Coogler's going to go straight from Wakanda Forever. He is a producer on Ironheart. So the question is, are we going to get more Wakanda-esque things being talked about outside of, she was in Wakanda? Or are we going to get some more hints towards the spinoff series in Ironheart?
Yeah, at this point I'm really just hoping for like an Okoye show. I would love to just dive into more with her. I'd love for Io to appear into that. Anika, yes, like let all of them appear in this one. Like that's really what I want. I can be patient for it. No big deal.
Yeah, I can be as well. It doesn't sound like, my guess is probably we will, if any filming is going to be getting off the ground or any kind of stuff, I don't see that happening at all next year. If it does, it'll be very much end of 2023. But this will be kind of like the first Disney Plus Wakanda shows, I'd say will not be until late 2024, early 2025.
Yeah, I would say we will not probably hear of their existence, like anything further on them until San Diego 2023 at the absolute earliest, but it could be even later than that.
Yeah, but my question to you at this point, when do we see Black Panther 3?
Man, that's a tough one. I was trying to think about that. Honestly, I don't think before Secret Wars.
Yeah.
I don't. That feels really fast. I don't think before Secret Wars.
Yeah.
It's possible they could, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I think this is a phase 7 movie. I think especially if the Disney Plus shows get off at any point, even one of them before Secret Wars, that further ensures the fact that Black Panther 3, who Coogler has said, he and Feige have already had discussions of different kind of things they want to tackle with that. So they're talking about it, but I don't see this happening until after Secret Wars. So,
yep, concur.
But all right, hope you all, if you're going out this weekend to see Wakanda Forever, hope you enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts, and we will see you next week at our same channel and same time, same channel, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.